Hey guys, what's going on? It's Salvage here, and today I'm going to be listing off some villains that I think should appear in the Batman sequels when, of course, they eventually happen. Now, let's try to get this video to 300 likes. I know you guys can do it. I have another Batman video coming up very soon, and any support on this one will just give me some motivation to get that one ready as soon as possible. Now, the first villain that I think that they should try to do, and a lot of these, if you will actually try to notice, are actually a lot of like redemption characters from movies that have been, trying to adapt these characters but just kind of failed miserably. So the first one is Mr. Freeze. I think everybody kind of just wants Mr. Freeze done right. And, I think there's a nice, interesting quote about Riddler and Paul Dano and how, this movie is trying to show how tragedy shapes somebody very early on in life. So I'd imagine that they're trying to use tragedy to explain what happened to Riddler and why he is the Riddler. Of course, they're going to use tragedy to explain why Batman is Batman and why he's doing what he's doing and why he's so violent. So I would love to see, of course, Mr. Freeze go through that tragedy of losing his wife, have Batman, try to figure that out and have a more sympathetic villain. Because honestly, I can't really think of a Batman villain in a very serious Batman movie who is sympathetic, because Joker in the fucking, the first movie and Penguin in the first two movies, like the first real movies, are like, absolutely not sympathetic at all. They're psychopaths. Scarecrow's crazy, Ra's al Ghul's crazy. All the other characters in all the other Batman movies, all the villains are pretty much downright crazy. The only one that I would think is sympathetic is like Two-Face from The Dark Knight. That would be the only one. But even still, it's like he's still a piece of shit sometimes, and he's still kind of tried to kill a kid. So it's like he's still a dickhead. And speaking of Two-Face, I think that they can make Two-Face a lot more sympathetic if they actually make him a main villain and not a side villain to Joker. Like, I think it's gonna be kind of hard to do the same type of origin story. I think that they would go like the acid run. And, I can actually see them doing, I think her name is Glinda from the comics, and adapting Glinda and maybe even killing her off, which keeps driving Harvey to get even angrier and angrier for him to be Two-Face. And, it looks like Batman's working heavily with the law here, and we don't know if there is a Harvey Dent DA yet. But when there is, it seems like they will be crossing paths eventually. So it seems like, that relationship is going to be shown. Like, at some point, Batman's very heavily involved in this movie with the law. At least, in my opinion, compared to other movies. They're literally side by side working together in crime scenes. So it seems like they're going to be doing something with, the law, and maybe something with the government as well, because it seems like they're pulling that as well. So I'm really interested to see how they're going to be doing that with Two-Face, because I want to see how that relationship pans out, and especially with Gordon too. Like, that entire trio can hold a movie, I believe. Even just Robert Pattinson and Jeffrey Wright, they can hold a movie on their own, I believe. So having a good third actor who's Two-Face, like, I'm not going to try to cast anybody, but they just need a really, really good one, and that's all we need. Two-Face is a very simple character in my opinion, but at least if they go the long Halloween route, that would be a lot more, I think, appropriate and especially fitting for this tone that they're going for. I think The Dark Knight didn't really go for the long Halloween one, because it was very, in my opinion, it was very, very different, but it was still a good adaptation of Two-Face. The next one, or technically two, are Mad Hatter and Killer Croc. Mad Hatter, because one, we need a trippy Batman scene, bro. We need like a Doctor Strange type Batman scene. You know what I mean? Where Batman just gets fucking snapped with like some Scarecrow fear toxin or some Mad Hatter trick, and he's just tripping balls. And I think Robert Pattinson can pull off not only a very entertaining Batman who's being tripped out, but also a very scared and terrified Batman who would break down and freak out if he sees that type of shit. Now, it'd also be a good way to show the Wayne's death in this universe, and potentially show how maybe potentially brutal their deaths are if this Batman's so brutal. Because a lot of the other Batman's deaths, I wouldn't say are tamed, but they're a little bit more understandable. To be honest, the Batman 1989 movie, that's a little fucked up, and that Batman's fucked up. So this Batman seems a little more fucked up in the head. I would love to see how he's fucked up, and I don't want to see it just oh, it's a flashback, oh, it's his origin. No, I want to see a legitimate, he's tripping the fuck out, and he's literally having a bad trip about his family dying. That's just it would be fucked, and it would be perfect for Mad Hatter. And Killer Croc, again, he's kind of in the Two-Face or Mr. Freeze category, where he would be a more sympathetic character. You wouldn't just make him like what he is in the Suicide Squad, which it's crazy that that's his first appearance, I think, in live action. But we definitely need something different, and we need something that's a lot more sympathetic. I don't know what the comic is, but Killer Croc does something, and it's not like he did it. I mean, it's very simple. A lot of comics could probably be explained like that, but you know what I mean. There could be an example of that where Killer Croc's just doing this to survive and to stay in the shadows, and Batman kind of understands that and maybe leaves him alone. He could be like a side character. There could be a Solomon Grundy Long Halloween type moment where it's just like Batman's trying to really just sympathize and just let him be, and that's kind of what I want to see as Killer Croc. Like, there could be a lot of emotional weight there for Batman, and I would love to see it. The next one is kind of like in the same category as Mad Hatter, but it's also in the same category as like Two-Face and Mr. Freeze, and that's Scarecrow. We need a good Scarecrow. I don't care what anybody says. The Dark Knight Scarecrow, he was great. Like, the actor was amazing. I personally think he was wasted, though. Like, what did he really, really do? He rode a horse and got tased in the face. Bro. Like... That's so lame. Like, I want some type of, not like a crazy showdown, but yeah, maybe fucking make Scarecrow a crazy fighter who can actually do something. Give him his pickaxe and let him fight Batman. We see Riddler with a rifle. He's doing shit. If Riddler could be doing shit, I'm sure Scarecrow could be doing shit. And also, if you have Scarecrow, you could easily again do the bad trip thing with his family. He'd be terrified of losing Alfred or some shit. He'll be terrified of maybe Selina. His paranoia gets higher and higher. You can do an Arkham Knight thing where maybe instead of him having one dosage that's like bad, he has one dosage that's bad, and then long-term effects of the Scarecrow fear toxin going through his bodies, constantly giving him hallucinations throughout the period of the movie, which would be very interesting. I think that would be really nice to see. So you don't know what's real, you don't know what's fake, but it kind of all comes together at the end when he finally defeats Scarecrow. And considering this is this first movie is a very point of view heavy Batman movie where it's kind of through his eyes, and there are rumors that there's going to be monologues through his voice, like you're going to be literally hearing it through Bruce Wayne's brain. Like, it's going to be very interesting to see how that would be playing out through Scarecrow if you're going to be seeing a complete point of view movie where he's just tripping out throughout the entire movie. I think that'd be pretty interesting. I would love to see that. Now, I have 3 honorable mentions, just 3. I don't want to go too far with it. Number 1's Joker. I think Joker absolutely has to be in this universe. I want to see Matt Reeves' interpretation of Joker. He understands these characters so well so far, especially Riddler. And I'm just surprised that he's so in depth and so connected with these characters, and I love what he's doing. So Joker, I believe, would be a very good point for him to actually, kind of change in his own way, because every Joker's different. So this Joker would be inherently different. I don't really know, it's going to be his vision. I don't know, I can't even think about what this Joker is going to be like. But if I were to take a guess, I just want him to be a lot more comic accurate. I want him to just appear out of nowhere and just be a fucking force of chaos. That's all he needs to be. Maybe he does figure out that Bruce Wayne is Batman. That could be something that could be very interesting and a twist that hasn't been done before. And he targets Bruce Wayne heavily, but he doesn't tell anybody that Bruce Wayne's Batman. There's a lot that you can do with Joker, of course, and I want to see what Matt Reeves can do with Joker. The next one's Ratcatcher, and I think thematically in terms of the tone, if Ratcatcher was involved, these movies are kind of horror based in a way, and I would love to see how Matt Reeves would actually direct Ratcatcher as a villain. Of course, you get rid of the whole happy family, not happy family, but the optimistic poor Ratcatcher that was in the Suicide Squad. Forget about that, and make him a grimy robber who literally kills people with rats. That's terrifying. Listen, being eaten alive by rats is that's just horrifying. That's terrifying. So seeing Batman fight rats, it's not something you really necessarily expect to see on camera, right? But Matt Reeves has done that before. It's you don't expect to see apes talking on camera, but they did it pretty well. So I would love to see how they would do Ratcatcher, how they would direct the action, and maybe he could just be a side character or a side villain. So the last one, I think, for the honorable mentions that I think should be in this franchise is Firefly. I don't know. I think it would be an interesting chase scene, kind of the Penguin looks like it's going to be an interesting chase scene, something like that for the future. And of course, he could just be a side villain, a sympathetic, because he is a character that kind of went through a traumatic experience and now is going at it in a way that isn't necessarily healthy. He's burning down shit because he was burned as a child, and it's not that's necessarily sympathetic. You shouldn't be burned down shit anyways, right? But what I'm saying is that Matt Reeves can possibly turn him into a sympathetic character, and I think that there should be villains in here that are very sympathetic and very understanding, but also those characters that are just straight up chaos characters. And I think that Riddler is going to be one of those characters, Joker will be one of those characters, but characters like Mr. Freeze, characters like Killer Croc and Firefly, those would be the characters that people completely understand or kind of just doing things because, you know, they were just fucked up in the past and they're not mentally okay. Hopefully they introduce Arkham Asylum, try to show it in a way that's like actually helping these villains. Like there's an optimistic outlook in Gotham. And the last one, I don't know if a lot of people are, I don't know how many people are predicting this one. The Court of Owls. We need the Court of Owls in this. Look, there's already like this whole No More Lies and secret shit. It's getting me hyped, but it's like getting me hyped for Riddler. I love it. But I want to see that type of shit from like the Court of Owls. I want to see this Batman fight the Court of Owls, and maybe, you know, the Wayne family is apparently corrupted. So Thomas Wayne and like characters like that can be subjected to like assassinations, and that can run deep within the Court of Owls. I would love to see like the friends of the Waynes, like kind of like a flashback of them just getting assassinated by the Court of Owls, and like the Waynes themselves being assassinated, like certain Waynes, like from like deep in the past. It would be a very interesting twist, and maybe even in the third movie, like go ahead, pump Joker into the second movie, right? And then for the third movie, you do this epic story where like nobody was in control. Joker thought he was in control. Riddler thought he was in control. Batman thinks he's in control now after he beat Riddler and the Joker. But now the fucking Court of Owls appear, and they're ready to be asked because now Batman's kind of, you know, he's inching a little bit too close to the ground. That'd be a pretty interesting story. And I think on screen, Matt Reeves would rock that shit out, and everybody knows it. That would be the best Batman movie ever. And I genuinely guarantee that if Matt Reeves put the Court of Owls on screen, it would be the most masterpiece of a Batman movie that we can get. So tell me what villains you guys want to see in the comments below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe for more videos in the future. I'll see you guys in the next one.